All right, here we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Camp Meetings. I'm Reverend Nate Melcher of Richfield United Methodist Church in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're so glad to have you. So welcome to Season 2 of Camp Meetings. This is the season premiere of Season 2. We're calling it Easter Ride because the season of Easter is called Eastertide, and it's Easter Ride. You can see this really cool ride behind me, and we're going to be talking about different rides and vehicles all throughout the season, so you should be thinking about your first car. We're going to share about those. In the meantime, we're going to start off with a song called Lean on Me. You probably know this one, and find the lyrics. So here we go. I'm going to sing it out here. Get it going. I'm a little out of tune. Oh no. Let's tune up real quick. We can do this. You'd think you would have done this before we were going to go. That's good. Ooh, come on, C. Come on up. There we go. Tune up that E and the A. That's much better. All right. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have things you need to borrow, for no one can fill those of your needs that you won't let show. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. For 5, it won't be long, short till I'm gonna need elbowed somebody to lean on. You just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. For 5, it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. If there is a load that you have to bear, that you can't carry, I'm right up that road, and I'll share your load if you just call me. Call me. Hello, welcome to Easter Ride. It's Season 2 of Camp Meetings of Reverend Nate Melcher. Now, the reason we're calling this Easter Ride is because last season it was Lent in a tent, because it was during the season of Lent, and we were in a tent, which was a lot of fun. But now, of course, Lent is over. We need a new theme. So this is Easter Ride, and you can see my very cool ride behind me. But it got me thinking, in Eastertide, when we have our Easter Ride, I thought for each week of Eastertide, I'm going to feature one of the cars I've ever owned in my life. Now, I don't have a lot of photos of my cars. In fact, I just had to find some on the internet, but I want to show you some cars and talk about them. So I'm really curious, what was your favorite car? I'm sorry, not your favorite car, your first car. What was your first car? Would you leave a comment in the comments and tell us all about it? I'm going to bring up a picture of my first car here and put that in the background. My first car was the 1979 two-tone green Dodge Omni. And you can see this beautiful hatchback behind me. I had this all throughout high school. I drove this car everywhere. I remember when my parents bought this car, I was not a fan from the get-go. When they pulled up with it, I go, that's not a great car. But it was an economical car, that's for sure. That's what we needed at the time, and it served me well throughout high school. So for all that complaining I did as a kid, this is what I definitely needed. It's a hatchback, so lots of room in the back for storing multiple trombones for marching band, and we got tons of people in that car. All throughout the back of the hatchback window, I had stickers, vinyl stickers of rock bands and rock bands. It was like Pink Floyd and Pearl Jam and 311 and Nine Inch Nails and Rage Against the Machine. Like every 1990s band that was big, there's a sticker of them around the perimeter. My understanding is that after the car was sold when I was out of high school, it got sold to the next owner, that the stickers were still around there. That's what I've been told. And I have very fond memories of that car. It broke down a lot. I remember slipping on the ice to avoid a dog, like the very first time I drove on ice, and I slid up onto the boulevard and knocked my wheels out of alignment. I remember driving out of that after a big repair. Repaired it. It was a ton of money. Drove it. Didn't even get out of the lot, and it broke again. And they said, "Oh, it must be this other thing." And I was so mad. So yeah, it was a good car. The little Omni that made it. And I also remember my boss at the movie theater had like 2 or 3 of these. Maybe not the Dodge Omni, but the Horizon. The Horizon, I think, is what they had. So leaving your comments, your first car, of course. And by the way, since I could not find a picture of my first car for real, I decided to show you a photo I did find of me about the age when I drove it. So this is a photo of me my senior year of high school. You can see me here. That's what I looked like. So I'm 18. Look at that beautiful hair. It's just gorgeous. It's long and flowing, and there's no beard whatsoever. How sad. So we talked a little bit about first cars, but in addition to that, now I want to talk to you about one more thing about cars. I want to make sure you understand that there's value in your car, especially in safety features, and we don't often think about the value in safety features until we need them. So, for example, you may never think about how much you need that seatbelt until you do. Maybe that's when it all clicks. That was tonight's Sneak Attack Pun. Sneak Attack Puns are not brought to you by Colgate toothbrushes. Colgate, it's not electric. Don't be shocked. Friends, I've been working hard on a lot of different meetings lately that are online, and in the midst of that, I've noticed that I want to say things to people, but I also don't want to unmute and say something like, "Oh, I agree with you," and then mute again, especially since you get crossover and talking over each other. It's very frustrating. So I've been making signs. So what I'll do is, if I agree with somebody, I'll just hold up the sign that says, "Preach." And this has been really helpful. But this is something that clergy often say to each other when we are, like someone's saying something that's really profound, or like really it's the gospel, we're like, "Preach." So I've been saying "preach" a lot. Another thing I've been saying is simply this, "Amen." That's been really helpful. If something's just great news, I'm holding up "Hallelujah." There's some sad news, I'm going to be doing "Lord, in your mercy." That's been helpful. If we talk about how complicated the jobs become, we just go ahead and put "other duties as assigned." And, sometimes meetings, they do get a little long, so, you can just go, "Hey, can you wrap it up? That'd be good." Or maybe, "Hey, cut his mic. I kind of like that." You can mess with people. Ooh, behind you. Take a look for that. You need justification. "Hey, man, Leslie did it." Okay. You can point people to the Bible, Ezekiel 25:17. You're starting to doze off, just do this. No one will notice. You can always go, I think that was Judas. That would work. Or barring all that, you can always just hold up a sign that says, "Do we even need this meeting? I mean, everything has changed, and I just want to have breakfast and go to bed." That might work. We're all looking for a sign these days, often a sign that things are going to be okay. And so I remind you that in Scripture, we have signs from God that things are going to be okay. And so Psalm 55 reminds us that God says, I hear you, that I call upon God and the Lord will save me. Evening and morning at noon, I utter my complaint and moan, and God will hear my voice. God will redeem me and unharm me from the battle that I wage, for many are arrayed against me. God is with me. And then Jesus, the last words that he says in the Gospel of Matthew are, I am with you. He says, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of God and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. Remember, I am with you always to the end of the age. So friends, in this time of seeking a sign that you are being heard, that you're being cared for, remember, you do have these signs. You are loved. God is with you. God hears you. Amen. Okay. We're going to keep going through this. We'll splice them all. We'll put them together on YouTube. So friends, my guests tonight are the amazing pastor of Portland Avenue United Methodist Church in Bloomington, Minnesota, and the lay leader for the Minnesota Annual Conference. They're both on the delegate team to the General Conference of the United Methodist Church. Friends, welcome our friends, Reverend Carol Zagsma and Dave Knuckles. Hello, you two. Good to see you both. So for those of you who don't know about the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, long story, very short and oversimplified. We have a system of governing as a worldwide church where every 4 years we come together, and that's where we look at the discipline by which we organize, and we might have legislation that goes forward to change some language or to add or subtract language by which we have ourselves held to a discipline and an apology for organization. And it's had some contention lately. By lately, I mean the last 40 years, regarding different issues and topics, including LGBTQIA plus full justice and inclusion in our denomination. And last year we had a special session about this. Both of you were at that special session, I believe, right? I'm sure it was a lot of fun. And this year we were going to do it in May here in Minneapolis, but it got postponed because of the COVID pandemic. So a lot of things are up in the air for a lot of United Methodists, even more so than it had been for a while. So we wanted to get some perspective from you two about the General Conference and COVID-19 pandemic and kind of where we're at now. So one of the questions I think people have is, okay, they're going to try to reschedule it. I've heard sometime in late 2021. Is that what you've heard, or do you know more than us?
No, the dates haven't been announced yet.
Now, if they say late 2021 and they want Minnesota still, do they know about Minnesota weather in late year?
I think they're aware.
So what are some of the practical logistics that have to be worked out to even reschedule this thing in the first place? Because it's like several thousand people in town for this, right?
That's right. We have 862 delegates, and then there'll be lots of visitors and, of course, volunteers to help, and staff, and all sorts of people. So some of the biggest logistics include scheduling the venue and the hotels. And, you know, we had all that secured for May of 2020. And so trying to arrange that in 2021 is a big deal. The General Commission will need to consider and work with the convention center and hotels for their availability, because, you know, we have a lot of local events here too that are on a regular schedule. So trying to fit our event in is no small matter. We also have contracts that we'll need to renegotiate, interpreters that we'll need to arrange for, visas for our international delegates that will need to be reapplied for. And so there's a lot to it.
That's a ton. Do people even think about that? I don't. Oh my gosh.
And
excuse me, I'm choking on my Sprite.
and to just put more fuel on the fire, the Commission on a General Conference is aiming for those dates, the date range that you described. but some of the other convention centers in America are not so confident about 2021. The city of Los Angeles just announced that they wouldn't have any big events in 2021.
I just heard that today too, Dave.
Nate, you're muted.
And I'm the tech guy. Okay. Why not do this online? That's one of the questions I think is practical, but there's probably practical reasons for why not. So we're talking about general conference, the logistics of having to redo it. My question is, why not do it online? I assume there's practical logistics on that, but why can we not do this online?
There's actually some rules about it. There's something called a plan of organization and rules of order that dictate how general conference operates. And this plan of organization says things like general conference will assemble at the set time and place.
Oh.
And there's also words like there's a designated voting area. And there's reference to things like committee members and their translators will be seated in a certain location. And so all of our rules are written with the mindset that we will gather in person. So the first thing that would need to be done is those rules would need to be written to allow for a different way of convening our business.
Let me guess, the only people who could do that would be at general conference.
Right. So we're kind of bound to meeting physically before we could even entertain that kind of thing. But I'll have to tell you that, you know, online voting, it could be a really great and efficient way to do our business. But with 862 people trying to follow Robert's Rules of Order online or have any sort of a conversation, that sounds pretty insurmountable to me. But I do think that this pandemic will be a catalyst to potentially rethinking how we do this in the future.
Our own technical issues tonight notwithstanding, of course.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things
Another thing, just to add there, we do online meetings for the general church monthly, and one commission or another. So I'm on the connectional table, and we have members from all over the world. And whenever we do something online, it is difficult for people outside of the US if they're in places with poor internet access. And it's somewhat isolating for people in those countries to be in the meeting, but not really in the meeting. And I think some of what people think about is this user experience to be fair for delegates from all parts of the world.
That's true. So I have heard things like, when it comes to, for example, full inclusion and justice for people who are LGBTQIA+, that the decision is delayed, but the work continues when it comes to inclusion. What do you think that work is that continues even if the decision's delayed?
Carol, did you want to take the first crack?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things that we can be doing. And, you know, it strikes me that before I became a pastor, I worked in the corporate world, and I had a boss that used to say all the time, focus on the things that you can control. And, you know, there's a lot that as individuals, as local congregations, as an annual conference that we can be working on to build a more just and inclusive church. And so I'm committed to using this time that we have in a delay. While it's disappointing, but I think it's also an opportunity to just continue on the course of working for full inclusion and greater justice in our church.
So two things I want to say in terms of the work continuing, and one relates to the Reconciling Ministries Network and Richfield UMC's status as a longtime member in that network. you guys have been great supporters in this work in your community and across the conference. And I remember, I think 4 years ago, maybe, I was invited by Elizabeth Macaulay to preach a sermon. No, Pam Serdar made the invitation. And it was my first time trying to do this, and you were so gracious at Richfield. And the free offering raised, I remember, over $1,000, which was terrific. And we're in a time in the life of the Reconciling Ministries Network that we're in limbo too, and it makes people uncertain how to support the work. And so, ironically, we're at a time where congregations are more receptive to the message than ever. And we do a lot of work through Reconciling Ministries, but we have a hard time supporting the work. So everyone is looking at this time as a challenging time financially, but when you ask the question, what kind of work can we do continuing to support Reconciling Ministries Network is a way to reach congregations all over America. We have a Reconciling Church now in Kenya. We have a Reconciling community in the Philippines. It's a really amazing time for the work we can do, but we need support. So think about that. That's one thing I would say. But another thing I want your congregation to really understand and embrace. We've really made these decisions in Minnesota, just like Richfield made a decision for your congregation. Last annual conference, our Minnesota conference passed an aspirational vision that the conference leadership has picked up and are implementing. And Carol was the lead author on that, and she could talk to it. It's a beautiful statement, not just what we were rejecting from the traditional plan passed by General Conference, but how we were going to live into an inclusive vision of Wesleyan Christianity here in Minnesota. And so I speak to Reconciling Ministries Network as operating in a lot of places that feel very much like they're in limbo. But and in Minnesota, we feel that somewhat, but I would like to say, well, just know who we are. We've stated that, we're embracing it, and live into that without second guessing what's going to happen at General Conference.
Carol, what would you say about that as that lead author?
Well, I would say there's some great opportunities since that vision was introduced. There's been a study that's created from it, a congregational exercise. So there's lots of ways for small groups, Sunday school classes, local congregations to engage with the vision. But it really is, it's a testament to our Wesleyan heritage of roots. And so I think it takes the best of all of that and aims for an inclusive, justice-oriented denomination. And so hopefully we'll keep working that way. And together I think that we can create that kind of a church.
You two are sports and a half. I don't even know what to tell you. This is really good, by the way. I think people keep coming back. They're hungry to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, sorry it's happening because it's, stressful for you, I'm sure.
If it was worship, I think I'd be really stressed. This is supposed to be just for fun. So, all right. Easter Ride, final part 7.
I really enjoyed your ukulele playing and singing at the beginning. That was worshipful for me.
Oh, thanks, babe. All right. friends, we're going to wrap up with this last part. So let me get my questions up for you. So Carol and Dave, you two have been in this struggle. I'll use the word struggle for inclusive justice within our own denomination for a long time. I'm actually pretty new to Christianity in the panoply of things, but I feel like you two have really been in this a while. And we got the delay, but you've also said that you're hopeful. But really, how are you feeling, and what do you think is going to help you carry on until whenever we do get a chance to come together as a denomination and finally perhaps reach some sort of closure or moving on?
Dave, you going to take that first?
Sure. I have hope for the church because I think it's clear. We know we're going to get over the goal line. It's clear in Minnesota where we're headed. And so now the points of tension are less in our local churches, like Richfield and my church, and not even in the annual conference so much as at the general conference. And so annual conference will have a chance to make a decision at some point. But right now, because we have passed that vision statement and our conference leadership are leading into that, I think we just focus on what our business is as Christians in Minnesota and get about building the community. We clearly have lots of work to do on inclusiveness for LGBTQ persons across the board in the church. And the things we said in the vision about anti-racism, we have work to do. So, that's just the work of building the kingdom is how I see it. But that being said, I would like a definite endpoint to when my next general conference will be.
Carol, how about you? What gives you hope getting to that point?
Well, I'll tell you that I was pretty discouraged after February 2019's general conference. And it was really a grounded call from God to this work, but also it was the hope brought to me by other people in that convention center. And beyond that, that are in this work together. And so I draw great hope from the strength of other people that are also on this journey. So, there are going to be some folks that say, I can't wait any longer. No matter how long the next general conference is postponed to, I'm finished. And I'm going to have to respect that, obviously. But I hope that more people than not will be along for this journey together with us, because that does bring me great hope.
I love it. All right, Carol and David, thank you so much for all of your insight and for all of your work and for all the hope that you offer. I appreciate it so much. I'm sorry for the technical delays, and we will try to get this all put together into pieces. But thank you so much for coming, both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
And my apologies for the technical glitches. We're not sure what happened, but we're going to try and get these pieces put together at some point. Luckily, this is just for fun, and so that's okay. Friends, what a ride it's been for Easter Ride, the season 2 premiere. So far, this is in like 8 parts, I think. And if I have some gumption and time, I will put all the parts together either on YouTube or here on Facebook. But in the meantime, thank you for your grace. Thank you for your patience. I hope that you did have a good experience despite us having multiple drops and starts and all of that. A few brief things. I just want to say, I'm going to go ahead and read your stories about your first car. I want to know about it. Next time I'll be showing you a picture of my second car. I'm talking about memories of my second car during Easter Ride. And tomorrow night, Mandy Sullivan will have a free Facebook event. She is a speaker that we're going to come. She's a Christian women speaker from Cedar Rapids area that we were going to have come up to Richfield UMC in June. Obviously, that has been postponed, unfortunately. So maybe this fall or maybe next year, but soon and for the rest of your life. And so I encourage you to go see Bandy tomorrow night. So if I find her event here, I can show it to you on the screen share. So there she is. There's Mandy Sullivan herself, and you can go to her page, just search for Mandy Sullivan, and it's Nurture Her Soul. And those are the events that she's doing. She's got a lot of great live stuff where she goes live, and it's very good. And the event is somewhere. What's tomorrow? Oh, the 16th, right? So this is it right here. The Girls Night In event, Facebook Live. So I encourage you to go to that. And as I say, Richfield, we hope to have her very soon. Otherwise, I think I'm going to call it good while the camera's still running. So friends, thank you so much for being here. Blessings to you. I'm Reverend Nate Melcher of Richfield UMC. In-person worship is suspended. Online worship is live streaming Sundays at 9:30. Plus, we have online gatherings for kids, teens, women's Bible study, men's Bible study, a Brene Brown Saturday study. Leave your suggestions for a sneak attack pun. Tell us about your first car this week. Tell us about your second car next week. We'll see you next week. And go and serve God in faith, justice, and joy. And as our band leader, John Leslie, would say, the best of all is God is with us. So, yeah, I like that better than this sign. That's much more generous, John. All right. Good night. Have a good night. Now I can't stop. How do I stop it? All this time I won't go, and now I can't stop it. There it is.